A forest without leaves, without blooms. Only wooden spikes rising from the ground, bearing the lifeless bodies of countless souls. This was no tale of fantasy. This was reality. In 1462, when Ottoman Sultan Mehmed II pushed into the realm of Wallachia, he did not anticipate the nightmare awaiting him. It was not an army that stood in his path, but a grotesque display of death brought to life. A field of impaled people, men, women, children, entire families, transformed into a horrifying statement of power. And behind this atrocity was no lunatic. He was deliberate, exacting. A master of terror named Vlad Tepes, known to history as Vlad the Impaler. Within these pages, you will traverse stories so raw they chill the soul, from the deserts of Ottoman Egypt, to the plantations of Suriname, to the death camps of modern wars. Each spike marks a wound in humanity's memory. And Vlad, far from a mindless monster, knew better than anyone how to make an empire recoil through the silent screams of the fallen. This is not merely a tale of punishment. It is a descent into the darkest recesses of power. In the summer of 1462, Sultan Mehmed II, conqueror of Constantinople, and emblem of Eastern Roman authority, advanced his forces northward. His goal, Wallachia, a rugged, shadowed land, where legends of demons, witches, and death haunted the wind through the trees. The Ottoman Empire required this territory to secure its European corridor, and Mehmed, who had made kings tremble, assumed no one could challenge him. He was mistaken. As the army neared the capital, Targovist, they came to an abrupt halt, not due to ambush, nor treacherous terrain, but because of silence. An expanse lay before them, unervingly still. No footsteps, no smoke, no birdsong. Nothing but the wind carrying a stench. The stench of decayed flesh mingled with misty air. A soldier covered his mouth in horror and whispered, "Your Majesty, what are those?" Their eyes fell upon it. A forest not of trees, but of stakes. Thousands upon thousands of wooden poles, jutting skyward like the fingers of the dead. And upon each finger hung a body. Men, women, the elderly, children. Some shriveled, their flesh clinging to bones. Others still bled, some clinging to life. A witness recalled. They did not scream. They had no strength left. They only groaned, pleading for release. Ottoman soldiers vomited. Others wept openly. Sultan Mehmed said nothing. He merely observed. This forest of the dead stretched endlessly. Not a single gap in sight. At the center, a row of taller, straighter stakes displayed captured Ottoman soldiers. Their eyes wide, mouths frozen in silent screams, as if eternity had trapped their agony. A commander whispered, This is a curse. No mortal could do this." Mehmed replied with icy calm, "No, it is a calculated message. And the one who crafted it knows the human mind well." Indeed, the architect of this horror was Vlad III, Prince of Wallachia. To Western eyes, he was Vlad the Impaler. To the Balkan villagers, he was a name spoken in fear, Dracula. Not the vampire of legend, but a living, thinking man. A strategist of unparalleled cruelty, who knew he could not defeat me in open combat. Vlad chose another weapon, terror. Death is the artist, and I am its canvas. He once wrote to a Hungarian nobleman, and he meant it. His killings were never random. Each stake was deliberately positioned. He varied their heights to create a sense of perspective. Impaled entire families together. Some hung upside down, others pierced through mouth to skull. An Ottoman soldier recounted in horror. "I saw a child writhing, skewered through its mother. Its eyes stared unblinking." Even worse, Vlad did not use sharpened stakes. He selected thick, blunt stakes, slicked with lard to slide inside more easily, ensuring the agony would last as long as possible. The victim was laid face down, wrists bound. The stake was carefully positioned through the anus or vagina, depending on the victim's sex, avoiding vital organs. If done correctly, the person could endure for 2 or 3 days, eyes open, mind fully aware, racked by unbearable pain that often drove them insane. When the point of the stake reached the shoulder or neck, the executioner would strike it with a heavy mallet, producing a sharp crack like a dry branch snapping. The body was then hoisted upright, allowing its own weight to gradually push the stake deeper. No one perished instantly. No one escaped. Each death was a spectacle. Blood became ink. Corpses were paper. History was written through suffering. In 1457, Vlad held a magnificent Easter banquet, inviting the nobility of Wallachia to his fortress. There was music, dancing, tables overflowing with roasted meats and wine. In the midst of the celebration, Vlad rose and lifted his goblet. "How many princes have you served?" he asked. Answers varied. 3, 5. One trembling elder confessed 15. Vlad set down his glass and smiled. "And to which of them were you most faithful?" Silence fell. None dared speak. "In that case," Vlad declared, "you are loyal to no one." Immediately, soldiers surged into the hall. The elderly and frail were impaled before the horrified diners. Blood sprayed across the feast tables, screams blending with music. The survivors were shackled and marched for days to a ruined fortress, condemned to a lifetime of slavery. Vlad's message was clear. No one was beyond reach. Not even kings, nobles, or commoners were safe. In the eyes of outsiders, Vlad was a demon, but to Laya, he was the last barrier against the Ottoman advance. And he chose to fortify it not with stone, but with human bodies. Though the brutal executions of Vlad III are often remembered as the mark of a merciless medieval tyrant, impalement did not vanish with him. The practice persisted, transformed but no less horrifying. After Vlad's death in 1476 and the presentation of his severed head in Constantinople, the world failed to learn mercy. Across other regions, impalement remained a tool of domination, punishment, and terror. One of the most haunting records comes from a French merchant, Jean Devano, who traveled to Ottoman Egypt in the 17th century and documented the procedure in a disturbingly clinical manner. Jean described the condemned being laid face down, hands bound behind them. A small incision was made in the anus, followed by the application of a tar and flour mixture to slow bleeding. The goal was to prolong life, at least at first. Then a large wooden stake, sharpened and oiled, was gradually inserted into the body, not thrust violently, but carefully hammered bit by bit. Jean recounted witnessing a man endure hours of torment this way, eyes wide with agony, groaning wordlessly, pleading for release. Later, the executioner returned, striking the stake through the neck. The corpse remained suspended until morning, when the stench finally drove locals to remove it. According to Jean, such executions were far from uncommon. It was a routine administrative practice, applied to rebels, thieves, or anyone who dared to insult the authorities. And if you think such cruelty belonged only to ancient Eastern societies, the history of colonial Europe will chill you. In Suriname, a Dutch colony in South America in the 17th century, the technique of impalement was made even more brutal with iron hooks. Black slaves suspected of rebellion or breaking colonial laws were hung by large hooks inserted into their ribs. The hooks did not fully pierce the body, but under the weight of the victim they slowly tore the flesh. Every time the body moved, every time the captive tried to breathe, the hook ripped more deeply, anchoring to bone. Death arrived slowly, not with the dramatic bloodshed of a movie but as a gradual unraveling, layer by layer. No one screamed. Only wheezing breaths, wide-open eyes, and tears dried by the equatorial sun remained. Why use such a punishment? Because its message needed no writing. This is what awaits anyone who resists. And it wasn't confined to the Middle Ages or colonial times. The 20th century, an age that fancied itself civilized, scientific, and just, still witnessed the grotesque return of impalement in different forms. During World War II, in some Japanese prisoner-of-war camps in Southeast Asia, a punishment called bamboo death, or takishu, surfaced. It was a cruelty that required almost no active executioner. Prisoners were tightly bound to the ground with freshly sprouted bamboo shoots beneath them. As everyone knows, bamboo is one of the fastest-growing plants on Earth. It can push up several centimeters in a few hours. As the shoots grew, they pushed upward through the soil and impaled the prisoner from below. Each breath, each tiny movement of the stalk made another puncture. The process lasted for days. To prolong the agony, Japanese guards sometimes gave prisoners a little water and rice, just enough to prevent immediate death from thirst or starvation. No beatings, no interrogations. Nature itself became the executioner. Why do humans repeat such horrors across eras? From Hammurabi to Vlad, from Assyria to the Ottomans, from Suriname to POW camps in World War II, impalement keeps returning in different guises but with the same purpose. The answer likely lies not in law or justice but in power. Impalement does more than kill the body. It kills the will. It erases memory. It is not merely the death of an individual but a living message to the masses. Resist and this will be your fate. That is why emperors, kings, military commanders, and colonial rulers chose this method. Not because it was judicially effective, but because it produced a psychological trauma that lasted. Pain transmits across generations. And though we live in a world that seems more civilized, the stories of impalement persist quietly in history books, in legends, and in cultures where darkness hasn't fully retreated. They remind us that fear has always been a tool of power, and that humans, when driven by fear, can commit the unthinkable. Every nightmare, however, begins in one place: the victim's pain. In the next part we will leave tactics, kings, executioners, and criminals behind. We will go deeper, to a place nobody wants to go, inside the body of the impaled. We will try, if possible, to feel what happens inside the mind and body as life is stripped away, hour by hour, second by second, fiber by fiber. Not the distant sensation of sorrow, but the feeling from within. What happens when a wooden stake begins to enter you? Contrary to intuition, the initial pain is not like the electric shock of a knife wound. It doesn't strike suddenly. It comes slowly, like cold water seeping into the bones. When the stake begins to enter through the anus or vagina, the first sensation is pressure, not immediate searing pain, but a cold, strange invasion. The body tries to close, to contract, to resist, but the stake advances millimeter by millimeter. It doesn't slice. It wedges, forcing apart every layer of flesh, every cluster of muscle fibers. No gaping wounds, no torrents of blood, only a dense, searing pressure deep within. As the stake moves further, entering the rectum, then the womb or bladder, the nerves ignite. The person being impaled begins to shudder uncontrollably, making sounds beyond language. Every subtle tap of the stake resonates through the body like rolling thunder, felt in every bone, every sinew. Once it reaches the chest, the agony intensifies. Here, nerves, organs, and vessels are tightly packed, and the pain transforms from something experienced to something that overtakes thought itself. Identity dissolves. One is no longer a person, merely a quivering mass of living tissue suspended on a column of wood. Upright, gravity becomes the cruelest accomplice, the victim's own weight pushing the stake deeper with each tiny movement or gust of wind. Control evaporates. Bodies lose function. Bladder, stomach, muscles all betray them. Screams warp into inhuman noises. Death is unpredictable. A strike to the heart or liver may end life quickly. But a masterful executioner can avoid these organs, extending torment. In such cases, survival can stretch for days. 3 whole days trapped in a single position, unable to sit, lie, or shift. Hour by hour, consciousness frays. Hallucinations arrive. Some see celestial visions, some flames, some comforting memories. But reality always returns with a fresh spasm, a renewed jolt of suffering. Some remain silent, their gaze vacant, begging neither for mercy nor for rescue. Witnesses glimpse those eyes and die a little inside themselves. Death is not a moment. It is incremental, measured in each excruciating breath, each nerve-stricken second. Some succumb to neurological collapse, the nervous system shattering under endless pain. Others to infection, dehydration, starvation, or exposure. Most surrender entirely, detaching from their own body, retreating from the world, and fading quietly. Why describe such horrors in detail? Why go beyond the surface of history? Because this is the essence of impalement. It is more than execution. It is communication. The human body becomes the medium through which authority asserts itself. Vlad grasped this fully. He did not impale merely to kill one man. He impaled to inscribe terror into an entire nation's consciousness, to carve a warning into memory itself. And it endured. Centuries later, the name Vlad the Impaler evokes no need for explanation. Blood, agony, and towering stakes appear in the mind without further words. not for killing the most, but for killing in ways unimaginable.
Though impalement has vanished from modern courts, its shadow lingers, in books, films, legends, and in the minds of those intoxicated by power.
The concept of weaponizing pain persists, cloaked in more civilized language. Deterrence, justice, psychological impact. Look closely, and the stake is still there. Thank you for reaching the end. Join us next time, where history is not only recounted, but experienced.